Did you, one of the tasks I did ask, did you finish anything that we had previously reviewed? Like, did you go back and...
Not finished, but made a bit more progress on.
Okay, cool. Because I've finished off Bremen or whatever
Oh,
we were calling
nice.
it. Yeah.
I've been trying to read through as much of Saki Michi no Pollen as much as I can.
Oh, okay.
I didn't finish the whole thing,
What
but
about
I
Sabu
did.
Ichi? Or you just dropped that now?
No, I haven't dropped it. I'm still looking through it, but I
Okay.
haven't advanced to it on it as much as I originally intended to. But
Yeah.
obviously, yeah.
You're listening to Alternating Sloth Podcast, episode 13. Jesus, we're on to 13 now. I have a very special guest with me today. Well, special guest, reoccurring guest. Eric is back on again. We're here to do a couple more views and shit. Eric, how you
Hello,
doing?
hello, everyone. Nice to be back on again. Although it's only been a week, I come on here so often that, you know, I might as well just be part of the show. So when do I get my share of the pay? Nah, just kidding.
All right, so Eric, what have you been watching in the meantime? Just what have you been keeping busy?
Honestly,
Other
not.
than stuff we've been reviewing, what games and other things have you been doing?
Not that much really. Mostly what I've been doing is just looking at different videos that could help me with a few strategy games I still haven't finished on my computer. Obviously to help me because some of these strategy games are, for all intents and purposes, quite complex. And I still haven't got my head around a lot of them. But other than the stuff that that you recommended me to watch. I've mostly been reading some Korean manhwa,
Mm.
which is, of course, Korean version of mangas, which are all some are pretty good. Most of them are based off of well, it's not just Korean; it's also Chinese. But most of them quite good, or some of them are quite good. Most of them are all martial arts based, spiritual, and all that, and quite a few of them repeat themselves. But there are some that are pretty good, and there's one I even looked at, which is The Lost Human. It's a it's a zombie survival series, horror series. It's actually pretty good, and it just kind of has that one Deus Ex Machina moment of moment of the character having died in the future of the apocalypse, going back in time, but still retaining all the knowledge of what he's done.
Mm-hmm.
So with that knowledge he's helping his friends survive the whole apocalypse. It's and this isn't like an ordinary zombie apocalypse. It's not a Land of the Dead or Dawn of the Dead scenario. This is more like a, how do I put this? This is more of a Resident Evil type scenario. You got your ordinary zombies, but then you got ones that have evolved to be bigger and stronger. Obviously, there's no secret organization that I know of yet that has actually, created a virus that actually spread this whole thing. It's meteorite comes from the sky, strikes the earth, and boom, you got a zombie apocalypse.
Are they
It
in a city that is named after some sort of pheasant, raccoon, or badger, or any sort of woodland
uh,
creature?
Honestly, the city that this whole thing started out in doesn't really have a name that I know of.
Okay.
I know that it's in one of the counties in China, but unfortunately, we don't know the name of the city,
Wait,
but
wait,
we
wait,
don't
wait.
care
Wait, a
because
zombie outbreak in a counter of China.
in a county of China, yes.
Yes, this isn't
Um,
Wuhan, Eric, is it?
no. Wuhan's a district.
But I
This
mean, is it near Wuhan or in like a
I don't
county
think
within?
so. I don't think so. No. I
Because
think
that's a
it's way
little
further.
scary if you.
Yeah, it's a little further out. No. It's not a thing that happens in that one particular place. It happens all across the world.
Mm,
Um, and it's really interesting because they kind of have this whole a viral evolution and development concept where not just the zombies but humans that have survived, and this is like apparently 30% of the world population, can who have survived uh, can also develop these abilities to match with some of the more powerful zombies.
mm,
So the main character, for example, like, has the ability to strengthen himself. His best friend is pretty much got Hawkeye vision and can actually snipe people easily. And this other friend of theirs, this little chick, she's just really fast. So ordinary abilities that have kind of amped themselves up to extreme levels. So this is one of the things that's one of the things I've been reading. It's quite interesting. It's
mm,
quite good,
mm-hmm.
and it's something I'm enjoying so far. It's got that yeah, it's still got its what is it? It's got its moments of humor. It's got its moments of sadness and all that. It almost has that High School of the Dead vibe, without the superpowers, obviously. But I guess where it differs from that is that High School of the Dead kind of trades superpowers for just being really, really, really etchy, and that is like as a selling point
Mm.
for itself. But otherwise, I'm actually enjoying this series really good. Really, I'm enjoying this series, and yeah, probably gonna keep
Mm.
reading it and see how far I'll go. But as with most series that I read, it kind of has to wait for an update, so I leave it and then forget to go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, that's what I've been reading alongside all the other stuff. That I've been trying to catch up on, which is not much, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and what about you? Anything else other than?
Uh, so I've been keeping with my One Piece watch. Still doing that. I actually I when I was I've read like most of One Piece. Just yeah, there's no sort of gaps in my reading of One Piece, but there are gaps in my watching of One Piece and like what arcs I haven't seen, what arcs I have seen. And there was one arc I didn't read in the manga because I heard people told me like, oh, it's not important, like you can skip it. But I went and watched it because and I went and read a little bit of it too because I got I went back and watched rewatched Water 7 and NES Lobby because I heard those arcs were great. And I'm
Mm,
watching One Piece in the dub at the moment. I have seen like the latest stuff in the sub as well, but I'm trying to give the dub a go because I like the dub. And yeah, I was watching NES Lobby, Water 7. I thought both of those arcs had some really good, like they're really good. They're the fan loved arcs for a reason, but
yeah.
I do think I was getting a little pissed, and this is the same problem I had with Fishman Island and a couple other arcs too, that I wish that I don't think are in like I don't remember being in the first couple arcs of One Piece, which is the fights dragging out for more than like 3 episodes or 4 episodes, like the Lochi, Lochi, I think it is. Lucci, sorry,
Yeah.
Rob Lucci. He's Italian.
Hmm.
The Rob Lucci fight that's in NES Lobby just goes for way too fucking long. Like
Okay.
you get Luffy fighting him in his regular
Yeah.
form, then he goes second gear. Then if I remember correctly, he's like, I'm gonna go third gear. I'm like, oh cool. And then he gets his ass kicked again. And then he's like, oh, okay, I'll go back to normal and I'll try gear two a couple times. And there's a bit of that, and then it just like after a while you're just like, oh, They're gonna be done already. Like, this is taking so goddamn long. There's nothing
Yeah,
really changing in the setting that much. Like, the fight's not getting that much interesting. There's not much else other stuff really going on other than them escaping like NES lobby, which
hmm
I would kind of prefer if they just put that after the big Rob Lucci fight. Like, I don't know. I think
it was. It is definitely set to around them escaping the Rob while actually still fighting Rob Lucci.
yeah.
Um, but obviously, I haven't actually watched how long the fight is in the anime
It
between
it
Luffy and
felt like it was. I
Rob
don't
Lucci.
think it's 10 episodes, but it felt like it was 10 episodes or some like
hmm
really high number like that. Where I feel like even though people don't like these arcs as much, and yeah, they're the beginner arcs, and like I feel like the crocodile fight I think was only maybe 4 episodes at most. I think like the final fight.
And
Like I don't.
it was
Yeah.
definitely an interesting fight because Luffy was the I think personally, I thought Luffy was the underdog for
Oh
the
yeah.
whole thing because you've got a guy who's got a devil fruit to
Mm,
turns him into sand, and he's in a desert versus
mm,
Luffy, who's even though he could stretch out like rubber, is still human, so he's
mm,
got water inside of him,
mm,
which Crocodile can manipulate and dry him up.
mm,
And even though Luffy tried to counter that by, covering himself in water and carrying around, a full barrel worth of water inside of him, there was like still moments where, you know, Crocodile still had the upper hand.
mm.
But there was a good fight because it's like no, you wouldn't have expected Luffy to win, considering he was the underdog in
Mm.
that fight. But I think it was still a good fight, all things considered.
Yeah.
Especially with how limited Luffy was in using the weakness of Crocodile. Especially the last
Oh
part of the
yeah.
fight
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, I have no more water, but I can still punch him. How? I am bleeding. That still counts.
Well,
Which I guess it kind of does, considering the
yeah.
human body is what
The
70% water.
the other thing
So,
too that I think of and it gets better in some of the other arcs. Like, I'm not saying this is for all the new arcs. It's just some of the ones I've
mm,
noticed. Like, they've kept Rob Lucci alive and he still comes back in some of the One Piece movies and stuff, which fine. But I don't think he has much character other than being an assassin and having a cool design. Like, we
yeah,
don't really get that much of a cool reason for why he's the way he is and why he does the things he does. Like, Crocodile's a terrible like person. He's a horrible villain, but he's likable as all hell. Like,
mm,
you don't necessarily want to see him like succeed and kill
yeah,
people, but you kind of like watching him do it because he's an interesting character and he's got an
yeah.
interesting design as well, which helps. But he is
Yeah, and
just
he's
a
got and I guess there's a much clearer goal with Crocodile
yeah.
to follow with than with Rob Lucci. Rob Lucci's like, I am an assassin for the government. I will kill. With Crocodile, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so I found clues to lead to a treasure trove that could potentially give me, tons and tons of cash.
Mm.
Okay, let's go for it. It's like, a clear goal to follow that'll get him almost anywhere. Rob Lucci, I don't know where continuing to be a
Well,
government assassin would get him,
yeah,
but hey,
they what's weird is they give him a backstory. Well, they give him like they don't talk about why he's an assassin necessarily. Maybe
I can't even remember Rob Lucci's
what
backstory.
what they do is, well, they see, that's the thing. It's not even really a backstory. They show him like on one of his earlier missions, and he basically like goes in and murders a bunch of people, and to say like he's meant to come in and save a bunch of people, but he murders the people he saves, and then like
Mm,
he murders the pirates as well, and it's like,
mm,
okay, like that shows you as a badass, and like I don't mind him being
mm.
a cold blunt like force like that, and I don't have
But
to
I
see
guess
his
he's
like
yeah.
tragic like past backstory, but like if you're gonna have a character that hasn't got that much characterization to him, like I don't want to follow him for that many episodes. I don't mind him being spread out. Like, show me, like, because they almost kind of spread it out. They give us some other stuff in between, but what they really should have done is Luffy fights like Rob Lucci for, let's say, 3 episodes, and then
Mm.
after 3 episodes, him and the Straw Hats like think, oh, we've gone away from like NS Lobby, we're on the way to Water 7. Then like big shocker, you know, two maybe 3 episodes later, Rob Lucci's like back and he's on the ship, and he fights them on the ship. And the cool thing is you got now you got kind of a core environment thing, which they did a little bit of like fighting on a ship sort of thing, but it could have been way cooler, I think. Like, I don't know, I just think if you're gonna pace out a fight, you need to change the setting, you need to change some things up with it. You can't have it like be kind of in the same thing where it's like it's in a dome kind of thing. And also, like, if your character's not interesting enough to keep it, going for long enough, then you need to like spread it out, or maybe you need to do like, oh, this is going to be a to be continued for a while, and we'll come back to it in like maybe 4 episodes or something. Like, we'll let it simmer for a bit. The first part of the Rob Lucci fight's great because we already know like Luffy got his ass kicked in like this big surprise attack from Lucci, and that's awesome. Like, there's been a build up to that. But and it's been for several episodes, and that's great. But when we finally get to it, like, it just draws out for so long that you're just like, are they gonna finish up already? Like, even I would like to see, like, I mean, Luffy does take some big hits, but he needs to either just take some big hits like early on in the fight, or Rob Lucci needs to like lose the fight earlier. Like, it just So
Yeah, but then what would be the point of having Rob Lucci as a character if he's just there to kind of advance the main character to
But the other thing too
an
is you've
extent?
got Spandam and all these other villains as well there, and Rob
No,
Lucci's not
yeah.
necessarily like the thing that makes Crocodile and Captain Kuro, even though people don't necessarily, I like that fight a lot though. And Arlong and all those fights, like the things that makes them really great, all those guys. Even I don't really like the Fishman. I thought that was too long as well. But at least of those ones, that's your like main villain who's running the place, and Luffy is taking on like the main guy who is running like all the operations. Luffy
No,
never
yeah.
fights Spandam, which is fine because it makes sense that you want to put Robin and Frankie because they've been like more affected by it. But at the same time, like, since Luffy's not fighting him and he has to fight like kind of the main like underlings sort of underneath Spandam and the world government military and stuff, it seems kind of like not as, I don't know, big, I guess, to me.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
But I
But
mean,
yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, you finish what you're gonna say.
So it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
But what I was gonna say is so I did that. I don't hate NS Lobby. I think NS Lobby's great, and and I do like parts of the Rob Lucci fight. I just think it's too long.
Mm.
But I did really enjoy like the Chopper fight, which was a couple episodes. I thought that was like,
Oh, that was a scary
yeah,
fight because it's like the first time you see, a snippet of what Chopper was kind of trying to avoid
yeah,
when he has to take too many of his pills. Like these rumble pills. I can take a few of these and transform into particular in particular types depending on my devil fruit. But I take too many, something bad happens. And then we finally see the bad thing happening. We're like, okay, that's terrifying.
What I like
just
as well is other fights are like kind of dispersed in there. Like, you get to see like Chopper comes up like and kind of interrupts Frankie's fight, and he's got to help Frankie halfway through, like, and he's sort of defeated the guy in his fight, but then he comes back. So there's lots of different like things with the setting going on, and like
well,
interactions and stuff, and
I think the
I
best
like
part
that.
about it was when Zoro and Usopp accidentally got handcuffed
Oh
together,
yeah.
and
So
they're
yeah,
like,
that's another great.
okay, so how
Yeah.
are we gonna fix this?
The Usopp the Zoro fight was great too because it was really silly, but it got like placed out, and lots of different
Mm.
things happened. So yeah, I watched both of those arcs again, and then I said, okay, I the pacing pisses me off a little bit sometimes with One Piece. Like, I want to watch something where maybe like I've been told not to watch the Foxy Pirates arc because it's just like
No.
People were telling me it's kind of filler in the manga and kind of filler in the
It
anime.
is, yeah, it's actually it comes up. I guess I'll give you a quick bit of a warning. It
Oh,
does
I've
come
already
up
seen
in
it.
both the manga
So
and the anime, but only in the anime it comes out twice.
yeah,
So it's kind of, but in the I think the second one it's only like a few episodes, so it's worth it to skip it. To kind of skip it because the Foxy Pirates, they really don't do much to advance the
yeah.
story. They're just
So
there because meh, they're there.
yeah.
They don't introduce much else to the world. They're just kind of I guess they're
Hmm.
just one of those concepts where it's like, there are some good pirates and there's some bad pirates.
Yeah.
This is one of the bad
Okay.
pirates.
So my point to that. So I'd been told to skip this arc, but I like some of the comedy in One Piece, and I said I want to watch an arc that's just more focused on the comedy and the characters being silly, and the stakes being not ridiculously high. There are some like moments where they try and make the stakes high, but like not at a point. I wanted to watch an arc basically where it's like I don't have to feel like this is dragging out. Like I don't know. And I decided to watch the Foxy arc, and you know what? I actually it's probably one of my favorite One Piece arcs. I don't
Mm.
care that it doesn't like matter too much the plot because I was laughing my ass off, having a great time, and enjoying like all the moments with the characters and the pacing for that. I actually think is better than some of the One Piece arcs because they're not like super serious fights, and because there's different things going on because they're doing like they're put into different sports and other challenges and stuff. There's lots of different things going on, so it's just interesting to watch.
Mm.
It's interesting to watch all the characters have to make their own ships and then have like a ship racing contest and see how like they some of them like do good jobs, some of them like do pretty shit like and seeing them
Mhm.
all get like how they get to use all their powers and abilities and stuff within these fights. Like I was totally game for it. Afro Luffy is freaking awesome and hilarious.
Because
I
one thing
and
basing
everybody
it,
in the dub, but like
yeah.
I've watched the show in sub. I watched the show dub. I'm sure the sub like the same on this, but the dub man, they seem like they were having so much fun. Like everybody just seemed like
Yeah.
they were just like having a good ass time, just voicing
In
this arc.
in fairness, when you have stuff like that, you can't help but do have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Um, so I actually haven't listened to the dub in a long time.
Mm.
So
Well, the sub's
but
fine too.
yeah.
I think Evil. I just really enjoyed this arc, and I think I just noticed the dub people were really enjoying
Mm.
it too.
No, definitely. Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah, unfortunately, I've only ever been reading the One Piece manga
Yeah.
because, unfortunately, with the what is it, 1,000+ episodes plus a whole bunch of movies,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard, especially
That
since a lot of
I
that is just
understand that.
filler arcs, which
Yeah.
I don't mind too much, but at the
I
same
think the
time,
Foxy
it's
one is
kind
the
of like,
only good. Like, well, a lot of people would say the water ship or the marine fort arc is good.
hmm.
I think I've seen a bit of that. That's not bad either. I would recommend
I think
people.
one of my favorite
Yeah.
arcs definitely has to be the one before Watership 7, I think. It's
Okay.
it's when they meet one of the pirate lords. I can't remember what that arc was called, but it's the pirate lord where he kind of steals people's shadows and he
Oh no, that's right out. That you're thinking of Thriller Bark, I think,
yeah,
and
the thriller
that's
bar. That was
right after Water Seven.
was it? I thought it
Yeah.
was before that.
Yeah, because
Okay.
no, because they meet Brooke. That's when they meet Brooke.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorite ones because
Mm.
it was just it was just like the whole I guess the whole fight against the pirate lord as well as what happened
Mm.
afterwards where they have to meet another one of the pirate lords who just absolutely destroys them, which I guess isn't a fair fight because it's like, hey, come on, we just finished fighting one of you, give us a bit of a rest. No, boom,
Yeah.
blows them all away,
No.
especially with that last end where Zoro kind of takes
Yeah.
the guy's
Yeah.
deal
Yeah.
and
No, don't
does.
don't spoil it too much, Eric.
Wait, you haven't read up to that part?
No. I've read it, but don't spoil it for people. That this isn't a One Piece podcast.
Fair enough. But in any case,
Yeah.
that was my personal
Yeah.
favorite arc of the
No, I really liked it too. I'm just saying,
so
out of
far.
the sort of filler stuff, Foxy for me is I honestly, I freaking hated what was it, the Amazon Lily arc. I thought that was like the dumbest, worst written arc in One Piece, and like
Mm,
I watched that entire thing, and I literally was pissed at the end of it because I was like, I watched this entire thing for you to introduce one character who's going to be important and two snippets of information that's going to be important. You could have introduced this in any other fucking arc, but I have to like
mm.
put up with Luffy on an island of women where nothing's really going to happen. And like the only good thing about the arc is I get to see that the author can like draw some different types of women at least now. Like they don't
I
all
kind
look
of,
the
I
same.
kind of,
I
I
just
kind of
found
figured
it
the
fucking
introduction
boring.
of Amazon Lily became more or less the it was kind of like to build up to the two year I guess break for all the characters because the island that Luffy trained on during the 2 year break, that was part of Amazon Lily. I figured that was the partial reason why they decided to introduce
Oh
it
yeah,
because
but
yeah.
it's another problem with what I was talking about One Piece again. It's too
Mm.
freaking long. Give me Amazon Lily could be done in two fucking episodes. Here's Boa
Mm.
Hancock. Boa Hancock has love sickness. Okay. Boa Hancock loves Luffy.
But then again, that
Okay.
kind of goes back to the
New
whole
information
Rob
on
Lucci
Ace. You know.
yeah. But I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole Rob Lucci program.
Yeah.
Problem.
Yeah.
It's you can introduce the character in 2 episodes, but how much of that can you fit their backstory into?
Mm.
It took what 2 episodes just to fit Boa Hancock's backstory and her
Yeah.
sister's backstory. Um,
You could introduce that with even, I know it's later on, but if you introduce that like a little when you introduce Jimbei or something like that would be
mm,
interesting, you
mm,
know. And I think
yeah.
you could even do fine 3 episodes of the frickin' Amazon. But I don't need the weird jokes that are in there. I don't need like Luffy fighting the different like sisters. Like you don't need all of that shit in there because it's just not that interesting.
I thought it was a pretty interesting introduction to how the new sort of mechanic in the One Piece world works.
Mm,
Because now Luffy, just like with the crocodile fight, he's fighting in an element he's never really touched up on, you know.
yeah.
And he has to find a way to kind of use what he can
Mm,
and win the fight. Including fighting against a force he can't actually
mm,
see or that he heard
yeah.
of before.
Yeah. Okay, this is getting too much into into One Piece. This became a freaking One Piece podcast halfway through. All right, let's talk about what I made you watch because this week is I guess I'd call it Supernatural Vampire Week or Supernatural Cop Week.
Hmm.
Because this show is kind of a supernatural cop show, not to be mistaken for the supernatural anime. This is yeah.
No, no.
This is a different thing. Now, Eric,
It
do you
is
want me
indeed.
to pronounce the whole thing, or do you want me to? Because I can read out the first part.
I will accept this challenge upon me. So I'm pronouncing the Japanese
That's what
title,
I mean. Do
right?
you want to read the whole? Because that's what I
Okay.
texted you. I'll, you
All
know what?
right,
I'll give you
cool.
the first two words in it, and you can give me the last couple. Okay?
I got the full title
Yeah.
right here. Um,
Keishi.
I'll give
Let's
it.
see.
Yeah, go ahead.
Keishichou, Tokumubo, Tokushu,
Tokushu, Kyouakuhan, Taisakushitsu,
Kyouakuhan,
Dainanaka, Tokunana. I'm
Dai
pretty sure
no
that's pretty. I thought
Daisa
that.
Daisakushitsu. I think there might be shitasu or shitisu. Yeah. And then Dainaka Toku.
Ta,
It's a fucking long title.
Taisakushitsu. Huh?
It's a fucking long
If you get the
title.
wrong title. Okay.
Let's just call it Keishichou for sure. What
Mm-hmm.
actually what's the English title, Eric? I don't even know the English title.
It's Special Crime Investigation Unit Special 7.
Okay. So what is that, SVU Anime
Mm,
edition?
it's SCIU.
SCIU.
SCIU-7.
Okay, we can call
Just
it.
like the CS, just like the CSI,
Yeah,
but I
SCIU.
guess with supernatural elements.
Okay, we're gonna call it SCIU for now. So anyone listening, we're referred to this anime, Keishichou. I'm not even gonna pronounce the full fucking title, because even if my Japanese was a lot better, it's a long ass fucking title to say. So yeah, we're just gonna call it. What was that title again, Eric?
Let
What's
me
the
just
initials? No. What's the initials? You said crime.
SCIU.
We're gonna call it SCIU. So Eric, what did you think of SCIU?
From the first episode, it was already pretty interesting. Um, and it does. I really like the style, and at the same time, I was just thinking, hang on, this seems familiar, especially with the opening. It was just like that kind of particular style.
Mm.
That kind of made me think I've watched this before, haven't I? And so going to kind of look at the details around it, I found out one of the directors apparently partook in creating Bakano.
Yeah, wasn't
Um,
surprised. The art style is very Bakano,
yeah,
very Joker game like as well. If he remembers
yeah,
that show.
pretty much. And I was like, that explains a lot. But I think that's where it kind of the show got me hooked, just on
Mm.
that kind of style, because I really enjoyed Bakano. I really liked it. I loved the style, I love the characters there. I love how the music was played. And in the first episode of this, it does reflect a little bit of it. Obviously, you know, it kind of in the hang obviously, I mean, obviously, watching this, it doesn't exactly follow the Bakano formula, but it does. It does. The style is still the same. So you've got a whole slew of interesting characters. They've all got their own introductions. They haven't introduced their own particular backstories for each one, but I guess the pilot episode does get you hooked, especially since it's one of those, oh, main character's already in big trouble, now he has to get out of it. And it is an interesting world they introduce, especially since I guess I don't see one of these worlds that often. It's one where humanity is aware of the supernatural. So in this case, what's included were elves, dwarves, vampires, and everything else living amongst humans.
Mm.
So everyone's aware of each other's existence. Everyone lives amongst each other. There's been there's just been kind of laws and social norms created to just allow this intermixing of species, especially with that whole joke about, oh, vampires have to drink blood. It's okay, we'll replace blood with tomato juice. That works as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, the premise is already interesting, and the pilot episode did get me hooked. And yeah, watching it is it's yeah, I do really like it.
Did you just watch
Especially
the
with the
first
main character.
episode, or did you watch any other episodes?
Mainly just watch the first episode.
Okay,
I've been
so
having a bit of trouble trying to watch the second episode since, I don't know.
yeah.
My computer's been having a bit of trouble with some of the media players, and
Okay.
I couldn't really watch anything
Yeah.
past episode one. But I'm
So
gonna
we're in
try
the
and see if
same
I
boat.
can. Yeah, I'm gonna try and see if I can actually, I don't know, get signed up to Crunchyroll and just kind of watch from there,
Mm.
which I don't really want to, but oh well, hard times.
Mm.
But it does introduce the main character, who is human and is already a detective. So
Mm.
you kind of already have a guy with already a job, and you already know what he's doing, and you've kind of already got his own character already written up. Pretty easy, pretty standard. I guess the interesting part about this is that he's already caught up. He's already a detective, and he's already caught up in a lot of crap. So in this case, he was caught up in a I guess bank robbery, and so he's the whole episode is just him um having to try and get out of that bank robbery and having to deal with being a hostage. But it's still really interesting because it still does have the investigative elements in it. At the same time, does still introduce the world that's where everything sets in, and it introduces us to pretty much all the other characters that the main character will be working with, which are the Special Seven, which is just one of those special government units nobody else likes, but they're the ones who are the underdogs who take care of the jobs nobody else feels like taking care of. Already a pretty, I guess, a premise that already exists maybe elsewhere. I don't have any names off the
It's
top of my
something
head.
I think that's definitely been done. Well, you watched a bit of True Blood, eh? The TV show.
Yeah, a bit.
Did they have
I did
cocks in
watch
it?
quite.
I've never seen an episode of it.
True Blood. I
Did it
can't
have?
remember off the top of my
Okay.
head. But one thing, I guess one instance I can kind of relate to this is Eneno Shonan Tony. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name,
Yeah.
but it's basically a series from the same guy who wrote Soul Eater. But in this universe, there is a special unit that's used to investigate other units.
Oh, is that Fire Force? Is that the Fire one?
Yeah, Fire Force. That's the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Fire Force. That's the one. Fire Force. So
Yeah.
the main character joins a team that's basically the underdogs of a whole organization set to defend humanity from all these terrible things. And basically, yeah, they're the underdog team. And this is what I guess this is the best way I can compare it to. The SCIU series does introduce the team as the underdogs who take on jobs and take on the responsibilities ordinary policemen might not do, especially if these responsibilities could mean a detrimental effect on one's reputation, or a sort of, I guess, introduces dangerous situations where ordinary police might not be able to kind of deal with it. I guess, and yeah, first introduction is pretty light and doesn't go anywhere beyond kind of doing these general introductions. But the pilot episode, the director who made it, and I guess even the music itself kind of already got me hooked.
Yeah,
So
I
I
like
guess.
I like the look of it. I like the bank heist thing. I think I need to give it a couple more episodes because there was some parts that's like, it's kind of meh. I didn't like that the character was a bit weak, but he did show some skill. There was one problem I did have. He can break he had restraints on him. He got kidnapped from these bank robbers and was in the back of like a truck. And it pissed me off that it took him forever to get out, because I realized once he could just, when I saw he could just get out of them so easy, I'm like, why didn't you fucking get out of this 2 minutes ago when you could have Jesus, you could, he clearly can throw a punch relatively okay,
Yeah.
it just pissed me off how long it, yeah.
Especially when he blatantly says, "I don't do well in high pressure situations."
And I was like,
You're doing pretty
bitch,
well
you
against
do
an
pretty well
armed
later on.
mercenary. You're doing pretty well against an armed mercenary. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So other than that, and the girl who kept on saying she was a ninja, and no, bitch, you're an explosive expert. It's not a ninja. You're fucking loud as hell. Unless you're freaking ninja, the game screamer, then you're that streamer guy, then you're a fucking loud case. But no, you're not a ninja. But yeah, but I thought the sniper dude was kind of cool, one-eyed sniper dude. I felt like I've seen that
Yeah, the old man.
and I think I just saw a show called, what was it, Hakata something, no ramen something, which I was tempted to maybe review on this.
Oh.
That show also had a dude, wasn't even a main character, just another side dude who was also, I think, a sniper at one point, and then doesn't have an eye. It's just like a one-eyed dude. I was like, okay, more of these things. But yeah, what were your let's just wrap this up. What were your final thoughts on this, Eric? You gonna watch any more? Did you
Oh,
enjoy
definitely.
this?
Mostly, I guess, uh, even if this concept, the whole concept of the introduction of the world, introduction of the characters, kind of a, character as a detective and as his own brand of justice he wants to go with. Even if all these kind of elements are or have already been done and it looks overdone, I'd still watch it mostly because of who kind of directed the whole show. Because the guy who made Bakano did a brilliant job with that series, and from the looks of it, he seems to be continuing well with this series as well. So I'd watch it to see if it develops well, because yeah, the Bakano show was great, and I think with this show, if the director is going along the same lines, I think it might be a good show to continue watching.
Yeah,
Um,
I liked certain aspects of it. I like the art style. I like some of the character stuff there. I thought the bank heist thing was kind of cool. I'd be interested to see what they do with the next episode, and I'll give it 3 episodes. But I did watch Joker Game, and I was pumped for that. And then that kind of fizzled out for me after about 2 episodes. So hopefully this is a little bit better than that. Because that was also, I think, directed by the Bakano guy, or at least had that sort of style. So we'll see how this goes. But we'll be right back after the break. We are back from the break. Eric, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, still good as I can be. Trying to keep myself, what is it? Trying to keep myself sane as I can while staying at home. But
Yep.
it's, yeah, basically been keeping myself entertained by playing games, watching movies, reading manga. Um,
Yeah,
and
so
yeah, pretty much.
I told Eric we both have stuff to review this week, but what I also decided to do is I love I like that I've reviewed some things to Eric, and Eric's given me some things to review, and I thought it would be really interesting to keep maybe doing this a bit as well, is to come back to these shows and because me and Eric don't necessarily stop reading this stuff once we reviewed it. We sometimes go back and check more of it out. I said last show that I was going to check out more of Bremen and Apollo, and so I did. I checked out Bremen, and I I read the final couple chapters of it. I read quite a bit of it, and my thoughts are a little bit different now. I still think there's not enough music, in my
Hmm.
opinion. It's more of a drama, in my opinion, with some psychological stuff thrown in there. Yeah, it was interesting. I'm gonna put a spoiler alert tag right here. Spoilers, boom. And just say the ending is fucking weird. They play in space or something like that. At least that's the way it looked. Main character, like his past is revealed that he was tricked by a cult or something, and they killed his wife, and his wife had a baby girl. And I don't know, like it just seemed way too rushed and out of nowhere, and didn't really hit me as big as some of the other moments in the manga.
Okay.
The I can't remember the name of the trans character who's in it, but she has a really great backstory
Rio.
where what's the name?
Rio.
Rio, yeah. Where
Yeah,
Rio
Rio.
goes back to school. She's kind of forced back to go back to school because her dad doesn't approve of her, the way she dresses and the way she talks, and all that stuff. And so she basically goes back to the school. She dresses as a boy. She doesn't feel that comfortable being dressed that way, of course, because she doesn't necessarily identify as that, but she goes into the school. She has to kind of assert herself, be tough, and has to put up with some not so nice people. And you kind of see that her dad's kind of a dick, and the people around her at her school are kind of a dick. But it's cool to see the Bremen people kind of fight with her and help her out, and get to see her sort of overcome some of her biggest adversities, and see her sort of grow as a character. So that was kind of cool. There's also a model, like an Ave, I guess a pop idol slash idol, a model sort of character who's introduced, who becomes like a big fan of Bremen. You sadly get to see some of the more shady sides of that industry, and like her having to put up with some sleazy people. And Bremen, of course, comes in and helps her because they're friends of her, and they're trying to get like this place at the moment as well that she used to live in. And so all that goes down. That arc was really interesting. The Rio arc was really interesting, but the ending was kind of just like, oh, it ended. Okay. Like there were some cool moments, but like it just kind of like just fizzled out a bit. Like it had a big like climactic fight thing, and then it was just like, okay, I guess that's it. I guess that's the way it's gonna end.
Yeah, and I've just kind of been trying to catch up on as much of Poland as I can. It's pretty much still it still continues on from the flow of the whole series still continues on as normal. The character development is almost still the same. Everything is still centered around how how jazz fits into their lives, how it connects them, and how it especially how they kind of express their own feelings, express their own ideas with each other using jazz as an element. I guess one of the most prominent parts about this is the character Sentaro having to say goodbye to one of his longtime friend, who helped him out with jazz. His longtime friend had apparently come back after a long trip and was involved with some student activism, which I guess isn't something that's completely surprising in the social circumstances of things. But because of that, and with quite a lot of student activism scenarios,
I think the thing you're
friend,
missing out too is his dad kind of disapproves him going to do these studies, and he decides to anyways. And then he comes back and he can't really go back to his family, and there's a lot of problems like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's still in the university. He's still studying what his dad wanted to, but he kind of the friend didn't exactly get dragged into it. He just kind of got someone just asked him to speak out to the student body and say, hey, if you got any problems, just speak out, let people know. And then that's kind of I guess that's how it started. But because of how much it escalated, it did create that sort of strain between him and his father. And so yeah, that's where it came in, that his studies didn't revolve around what his family, what his dad wanted. Instead, the friend, I can't remember his name, he decided, this activism was far more important. But because of the things that happened, because of the incidents there, he kind of, I guess he had a mental breakdown, and had to go back. So he went back. His family kind of found out what's been happening, kicked him out. Is kind of like he was practically homeless and in a sort of depression. So it did go kind of downhill from there, especially when the girl Sentaro had a crush on starts getting closer and closer to his friend rather than Sentaro himself. But I guess at the end of it, you find out that his friend has to leave to go back to the city and continue with the whole student activism thing, which obviously apparently also meant that he will never be coming back. So it's like, okay, that's really extreme. but I guess to his point of view, it was understandable. Um, so it ended up being that he and Sentaro had like a playoff to as like a to commemorate their goodbye. Because the way they've always connected is through jazz. And you can kind of see that the previous chapters where they practiced together, they helped each other out. They helped the main character Kaoru out with his incorporating jazz into his own piano style, um, and all that, and is kind of a to me personally, I found it a good moment to see these two kind of go at it on their own particular instruments as to see if they can outdo each other on on their own particular jazz songs. It is something I like seeing. And then after that, I think that was like a massive moment. And then after that, I guess further, it kind of slopes down from there. It goes from one extreme to just kind of a relaxing moment. So at the moment, the part I'm up to is more kind of development of relationships between all the characters. With Centaro's crush gone, he's kind of left with, you know, having to reevaluate some parts about his own life, and finding out his childhood friend had a crush on him all this time made him think, okay, so there's some things I've never noticed before. Um, but again, that still incorporates into the development of the character relationships, and it's still ongoing. Even the chapter I'm up to, that's still that's still an ongoing topic. Where the characters it's still really casual about how the relationships works between the characters, but I still like it. It looks all pure, looks all simple, nothing too complex. And it's, I guess, in a way, it is something I like to see continue on with this series. If Yeah, and I guess yeah, that's pretty much where I'm up to. And something I'm probably gonna enjoy. I'm probably gonna enjoy as long as it kind of continues on the same way. So pretty
So,
much, yeah, that's where I'm up to with it.
so yeah, I recommend. I said that this week would be a vampire sort of supernatural cop sort of thing. So I gave Eric. This is a series I have read years ago, but I've been really busy this week. Believe it or not, planning some other content for this podcast and maybe even some stuff for my YouTube channel. So I picked something that I had liked, that I read, that I wanted Eric to read, and that's a manga. I believe it's called Happiness, and I would say it's, to me, if I was going to describe it to someone, it's Tokyo Ghoul, but it's not a shonen. It's just a straight up horror. And
Mm,
that's kind of what I like about it, because I watched Tokyo Ghoul back in the day. I thought, this is kind of cool in its first couple episodes. And then I kept on watching. It's like, I don't give a shit about this fights, these powers, any of this shit. Like, I was all for dude, like, having hunger problems and having to, like, try to eat hamburgers, and, like, that being a horror, and like him being really attracted to this girl, and then her turning out to be like a creepy vampire thing. And this is kind of similar. This dude, he's kind of a wimpy guy. He like walks home one day. He's got to return something to one of his friends, and this girl like jumps out of nowhere. And she's like a little bit older than him, and she bites down on him, turns him into says like, "Oh, do you want to live, or do you want to like die?" Basically, and he's like, "Oh no, I want to live," and yeah, basically turns
mm,
into a vampire. And it's all about all like his struggles with it. What I like is, yeah, it's just about him having a struggle with it, and having to try and work around it, and having to deal with what happens when people around him get affected by it as well. Like, I really liked that angle. I actually was almost not going to review this because of our situation at the moment, but I thought, fuck it, it'd be kind of funny if we reviewed a vampire thing while there's a pandemic thing going on at the moment. Um, and I do really like this manga for the reasons that I've stated. So, Eric, what did you think of this manga?
I liked it. I guess this is one of the first vampire um manga series where it's not over the top. There have been there have been a couple of other vampire series I've watched, especially one where was I can't remember its name, but it featured a this chick, this pink-haired chick who, apparently dies but then resurrects as a vampire, and
Oh, that's
it was
Shiki.
really
I think that's
yeah,
Shiki
Shiki, that's
you're
one.
talking
I
about.
thought yeah, that was a completely over the top. I personally thought when I first saw it.
Mm.
But looking at this series, happiness doesn't exactly go over the top with this concept of vampires. It's pretty. I guess it's pretty mellow about how vampires are. They seem to be more like I guess it portrays them as more like a newly like kind of like wild animals, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's some particular aspects about them that you would find strange as they differ from the norm of humanity, but at the same time they don't differ so much that it's becomes a black and white thing. It becomes more of a they've got some increased strength, they've got some
Mm-hmm.
increased senses, they look at things differently. But at the same time, they have to, pay the price for it.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty basic, pretty mellow standard vampires. One thing I found reading this is I almost kind of, I don't know, I kind of thought the development will be slow because as far as I remember, somewhere between chapters 5 to 10, that's where I kind of thought, oh, this seems to be more of a slice of life now. It's like, are they ever
Mm-hmm.
going to develop the vampire concept anymore? Because I don't know. For me personally, I thought that seemed like a bit of a slow stretch. But then it pretty much kicked it up a notch.
Mm-hmm.
With the main character being led away by some bunch of hard asses who think, oh yeah, we're a bunch of hard asses, let's go beat everybody else up, and then they get absolutely wrecked by another vampire. And basically, what it ends up being is the concept
Spoilers
development
alert,
of
by the way.
yeah,
Massive spoiler
yeah,
tag right here.
the concept. Oh, don't worry, you can edit that out later. Um,
I won't.
the whole vampire concept does take a bit of a big step forward, and that's something I'm enjoying watching. And even up to now, the story around vampires develop, how they develop, how they how this concept works
Mm.
in the world of happiness. It's kind of picking up, which is something I really like seeing. Um, so yeah, I definitely think, yeah, it's definitely something I enjoyed reading and still do enjoy reading.
Mm.
Um, so, and it is one of these old manga series I have never come across because I don't often delve in too deep into that treasure trove of series that have continued on or have finished, but are so old they're continuing on from say the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, you say old. I
I guess
think it's
this.
actually not as old as you think. I think it's actually early
Hmm,
2000s, but it just has an
okay,
art style that's a bit older looking, I guess.
yeah, it is. The art style is the art style is almost similar to what I would think is of Sabu, which is
Really?
another early series we
I
did.
would
Yeah,
not.
I
Sorry,
mean
I have to cut you off there.
the
Sabu
characters.
and thing are
Well,
very
okay,
different.
okay, so
Sabu's way more
okay, one.
cartoony. We can at least agree on that.
Yeah. That's the thing. But but as I've kind of mentioned during the Sabu review, the
Mm.
one thing I liked about Sabu is the whole is how the environments are drawn and how
Mm.
everything else looks like it could be a Van Gogh painting,
Mm.
which is almost the same as
Oh,
this
okay.
because
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
when
The
we
Van
see
Gogh
the
type backgrounds.
yeah, pretty much when we see things from the point of view of vampires, it all looks like a Van Gogh painting.
Mm. Mm.
A lot of lines, a lot of strokes here and there. What could be a lot of colors, but it's a black and white manga, so you wouldn't know. But I guess where it differs from Sabo is the characters have a bit more detail to them. You know, they're more the art style is more humane. Instead of making all the other characters except the main characters look like potatoes. And even then, the main characters are quite simplistic, very simplistic. With the this is one of those mangas I've come across where the characters are where the character designs, the way they're drawn is all based off of how humans might particularly look, and the way they kind of the way they're featured, the way their lives kind of work out. It all looks really good. And it's that different to Sabu. And looking for this, I am quite enjoying it, and especially with the I guess one of the biggest differences between this and any other vampire series is the sense of desperation from these vampires, because almost all other vampire series have a sense of desperation for blood. This doesn't seem to come up that often. With the exception of one of the characters who seems to be going on a rampage, but I think that's because I feel like that's because of something else. It doesn't seem to be that much in terms of a desperation for sucking blood. It seems to be more of, if you suck this amount of blood, you'll be that much desperate for it. And so it does seem to slightly differ from the other traditional vampire series in some way. And this is a detail I find pretty interesting, because if that's the case, does this mean that other than having other basic abnormalities that would differ them from human beings, does that mean there's a sense of control here that they can have that is different to what other vampires might have? Is there a way for them to actually live without having to kind of go crazy completely? And even though we see that I've only seen these guys having these desperations, all those general desperations of need for blood or need to get out of the sunlight early on, but that's when they were new vampires. Like there's it's hard to see what happens. It's hard to see what happens when they develop, later on, as actual vampires, as what happens when they finally get used to their powers. Do they continue to have that kind of desperation, or can they have it under control? So I don't know. It's that little detail I feel like might actually develop further on. But as apparently Connor might have actually read all this before I did, how close am I?
Oh yeah, no, you're pretty close. There's a big moment that happens later, like in the manga, that really affects a lot of the later chapters, and then there's a big time skip, and when that time skip happens, there's just this big change in what the manga is sort of about, and it goes on sort of that change for a while, and you're wondering what's happening, where's this character gone, what's going on with this, and then other things come into it, and it's just it's an interesting read. I will admit, when that change happens, you do lose a little interest, because you're like, oh, where's such and such gone? What's happening with this? Why is this not happening? So it does take a while, but when it gets there, there's a really good payoff. And the ending for the manga overall is okay, but you do get a nice moment before the ending that's kind of cool. That's like, oh, okay, the ending wasn't perfect, but I got that really cool big moment. So there's that. And I think, like most vampire stories, there's always just this really great undercoat of the themes of sexuality and struggle with sexuality, and that's definitely prominent here, where you see this main character, his thirst of blood is kind of like his hormones, sort of developing, and his like a guy lusting after a girl, sort of developing feelings for chicks, starting to check out women, and sort of developing as a person. We're seeing that with him as well, except the only difference is here it's a need for blood, And we see a literal depiction of this of one of the characters who, not only has a craving for blood, but is also just having the regular cravings that a teenage boy would have with his girlfriend, doing the normal types of things that happen at that age. But showing there's the fear in a lot of vampire stories where it's like, I'm attracted to this person. I'm the under message being, you're attracted to this person, but there's something wrong with it, because a lot of these were written usually from the point of view of the person, it's about them being gay or something like that, at the vampire law being, this girl wants to drink the blood from the other girl, but it's wrong because the undercoding being that these are two people who are girl and girl, that it's a moral sin, things like that. That's been the undercoat for vampire mythology for a long time. I always think of Dracula a little bit of being this sort of fear, because it's written by a white Irish guy. I always thought of it being a fear of. I always thought it was a fear of the foreign invasion of people coming into my country, or people wanting to come into my country and taking my woman and taking my people and changing them, because there's definitely that there's definitely that message sort of in there a little bit with that story, especially if you know it, because Jonathan comes to Dracula. He's going to sell him a house, and where he's living, he sells Dracula this house. Dracula does something to him, and he's not right now. He's changed, and now Dracula's interested in his woman, and he's taking his woman. So there's definitely that message underneath there of this person is coming in and is changing things and is doing something different. It's that fear that's in every horror, which is the fear of the unknown. It's definitely in most of the best stories. Sadly, that's also where a lot of racism comes from. But that's just the horrors of society itself.
Yeah.
And I
I
think
think
this story
one of the
definitely
biggest.
has undertones
Yeah.
of that in it. To be, yeah.
Yeah. But I guess if we're talking about racist undertones in horror series, I think I've apparently, from one review I've seen, one of the biggest contenders has to be H.P. Lovecraft. That's
No,
you
we're
know
not
the
getting into that. That's some racism and
we will
some
one day,
sexism
Connor.
and
We
some
will
other
one
issues that
day.
are definitely in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah,
What were
among
your
those
so
things.
so to wrap it up? What were your final thoughts on this, Eric? Are you gonna continue reading this? What are your final thoughts?
I'm definitely going to continue reading this because I guess I'm kind of gripped by this new concept of a vampire, especially with what is it? Especially with a few other series I look at that involve, say, the undead,
Hmm.
and um where the concept of a zombie is taken out of the norm and it develops.
Hmm.
And there seems to be some, new development here as well. These vampires seem to be there seems to be some different details in these vampires. There seems to be, a different kind of, there seems to be different kind of concepts to this, which is something I'd like to continue to see develop.
Hmm.
Maybe there's definitely something about this that'll what is it that'll make things that'll make maybe there's something about this that'll make the story a bit more interesting. And yeah, this definitely is a series I might want to continue to
Hmm.
look at, just mostly for the just to see whether or not this new a few new details around vampires might develop.
Hmm.
Um, and apparently, from what you've told me, there is some development to
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
these vampires operate that's different from the norm, which is
Yeah.
something I am almost completely hooked. But I'll see.
Yeah.
So I would definitely
Hmm.
continue reading on with this. And yeah, just to see where it goes.
Yeah, so I enjoyed coming back and reading this again. Um, there are aspects. I will admit the art isn't that pretty. There are some things in the art that I wish were drawn a little bit better, but it's his art style. I don't remember the name of the author actually, if it's female or male, but generally, it gets done what it needs to and conveys what needs to be conveyed in the story. And I think just generally, it's an interesting read, and I enjoyed going back and reading it for a second time. And I don't know if I'm going to continue reading it because I kind of already know what's happening. I might just skip around and go back to some of the chapters I like and go, oh, I remember this part and this part. So, yeah, but definitely an interesting read. So we're gonna have some interesting things happen next week because we have to adjust our schedule a little bit. So we'll work around that somehow. We'll see what happens. I'll keep you guys updated and posted on Instagram and Twitter on what's going up with that. This has been Alternating Sloth Podcast, episode 13. Catch you later.
Bye-bye.